Hello everybody, this is Dr. John Ortiz Teope in our show, Ang Laging Daan ni Doc John. What is ang laging daan in English? They would say the always way of Dr. John or the regular way of Dr. John. Now, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new topic, something that is interesting and something that people would really talk about. People would talk about issues pertaining to politics, pertaining to show business. Now we would speak about science. And when we speak about science, we speak about technology, the application of science. So we invited somebody who is an expert pertaining to technology and pertaining to science. But on a certain point, we need to look at the moralities of this topic, and maybe he would be the one to discuss it regarding issues pertaining to such topic. Now, at that point, how do we title our program? Oh, very intriguing. Usually people would always wait for the title of Dr. John because within the title they would say, wow, the title is so taboo. No, the title is not taboo. It depends on the people and how they look at the title. So our title for this day is about what? Knowledge about new technologies other than tradition. What is traditional technology and what is a new technology? Now, new technologies are evolving. From then on, since the time of the 1900s up to now, science evolves, technology evolves, and within that point, as we look at technology, it is always improving. Then, when we speak about inventions, when we speak about the improvement, we speak about the dimensions of how technology is being developed. Now, other than tradition, when we say the traditional technology, the ethnic technology, which is the natural technology. Now, technologies have so many qualifications and so many classifications. We have what? Robotics, we have even genetics, we have different sciences. Now, when we speak of sciences and all the logi, the logos, biology, psychology, botany, zoology, and all the logi there, is that the new topic that we'll discuss today is about biotechnology. And as I mentioned, what is our topic? Knowledge about new technologies other than tradition. You just spell it out, ladies and gentlemen. Knowledge, K, about A, new is N, T is technology, other than is O, and tradition is T. Wow, it's up to you to spell it out. Now, our guest is from Belgium, is as we say, a professor in a university in Belgium, that's the University of Gent. He's been practicing for so many years regarding his field of endeavor, and at that point, maybe we would ask him to introduce about himself. So our guest is none other than Doctor, Professor, Engineer, Stefaan Werbrouck. Yeah. Hello, yes, Stefaan.
Hello, Dr. John. Hello.
Now, Stefaan, the person that I would like to ask you is that who is Stefaan Werbrouck?
I am professor in plant biotechnology in Ghent in Belgium, and I have 3 jobs there. That's education, so I have students to teach horticulture, biotechnology, plant tissue culture, and other things. It's my first job. Second job is research. I run a research lab for plant micropropagation, plant cloning, and I hope to tell you more about that next minutes. And my third function is to advise companies and organizations and to help them with research and so.
What gives you the interest to go to such field of biotechnology? Your engineering is what? Agricultural?
Agricultural engineering. So yes, engineering.
Yeah. So is agricultural biotechnology is a part of the subject then that you took in agricultural engineering?
Yeah.
So within that point, that do you really like to be an agricultural engineer? Belgium is not as an agricultural country.
Yeah, but we have a lot of intense agriculture, so we have a lot of horticulture and, for instance, also a lot of vegetable growing for the deep freeze industry, so that it's intense, very intense agriculture.
What agricultural product is Belgium famous?
Famous for the azaleas, it's flowers.
What's the azalea?
Azalea is a kind of bush with nice flowers. Yeah, very.
Do you have rice peels, coconut peels?
We use it as substrate to grow plants, coconut peat. But we don't have it.
How about if you would describe the topography? How many are the land which is only concentrated on environmental agriculture?
Well, we have we have 10 million people, very crowded people, and not too much place anymore for a lot of environmental crops like woods and bushes. Yes, it's very crowded place, so we have to be careful with that, not to destroy everything. Yeah.
So when it comes to development, let's go to your country first. That what is being prioritized pertaining to development? Usually, when we look at development, we speak of sustainable development and also looking at lands. So do you the mountains? Are the mountains reserved or the areas for land only, or would they also establish residential houses?
Yes, it's everything is protected and well planned. You cannot build a house anywhere, just in certain regions, and all the rest has to be maintained for nature and forests.
Okay, who is Stefaan Werbrouck when he was a child? What is your likes? What are your hobbies?
My hobbies. Very early, I started gardening. I guess very when I was 6 or 7 years, I started gardening, and that's so my whole life I went to the plants and fascinated by plants. And it's just one teacher just when I was 9 years, he gave me a pea, a small pea, and he said, so "Watch the pea, put it to the ground and watch it."
What is that pea?
You know the pea, like a bean. You have beans and peas, small green seed. He gave me, and I planted it, and suddenly I became a plant-interested person. So I watched the pea growing every day, and I saw one pea becomes 30 new peas, and I was thinking, next time I have 900, and then 2,700, and then I will be have a whole farm with peas.
Stefan, recently you were awarded by Better Globe International in your accomplishment in biotechnology. What makes you outstanding?
So my specialization now is plant tissue culture. It means plant cloning. We grow plants in containers, so test tubes, in a special gel which feeds them with sugar and nutrients. And it's a way to clone plants. The plants becomes very small. It grows very fast. After a few weeks, you can divide it in pieces, put it in a new container. So you can say that every month the plant is multiplied by factor 4 in the test tube or in the container. So you can imagine if you multiply 1 by 4 and you have each year 12 cycles, you can 4 times 4 is 16, then 56, 256, then you have 1024. After 1 year, you have millions of plants.
Okay,
that's
the plants. You speak of biotechnology.
Yeah.
In a simple term, how can you make people understand the meaning of biotechnology?
So it's all the technology we use to work with plants and to make it useful for people.
Remember, there's two words.
So you have the biology and biotechnology.
Bio is life, and the technology.
So you use life for the benefit of people.
Now, the life and the people. About when you say cloning, the word cloning is some sort of unacceptable sometimes to certain people.
Yes.
So plant cloning. What kind of plants do you clone?
I started with cloning ornamental plants, but the last years I'm mainly cloning trees, because it's a lot of trees you cannot propagate by seed because there is no seed, or there is too much variation in the trees. So we need to clone good trees and make millions of them.
Is cloning different from crossbreeding?
Yes. So when you crossbreed, then you have the children of the tree are all different. It's like your children are different.
So are all trees can be cloned? Can we clone all trees?
Not all trees, no, not yet. So we still have a lot of trees which need to be researched.
So you usually, what kind of tree do you clone?
The oil palm, for instance, that cannot be cloned so easily. But what we do is hevea plants, rubber plants, the muco, the melia plants for Africa, hardwood species. So not too much plants from Europe. No, from Africa and Asia. That's what we want to clone.
Okay, Stefan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know certain backgrounds right now about Stefan Werbrouck, and he would talk about himself. He talk about his background. Later on, we will discuss so many issues pertaining to biotechnology, the GMO, the cloning, and with that, we will be back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm here with Stefan Werbrouck. Now, we discussed earlier about his background, and maybe we would now discuss advocacies pertaining to Better Globe, pertaining to environmental protection. Now, let us now look at, Stefan, the concept of environmental protection, preservation, sustainable development pertaining to biotechnology. How is biotechnology essential or helpful to environmental preservation and sustainable development?
Yeah, so here in the Philippines, there are several very interesting trees that are nearly extinct because their habitat is destroyed or because they have no seed or there's and biotechnology can help to save those trees by cloning them. If there are only 10 trees anymore, you don't have to wait for seed, you just take the trees and clone them. Otherwise, there are no left anymore.
But people would say that cloning is not just human being, even trees would be immoral because you're playing God.
Yes, if you go to the street and ask people, do you want to eat cloned food? Oh, no, they say it. But they don't know that almost every food plant is cloned. Ananas is cloned, potato, mango, everything is cloned. It's not the same like cloning humans. Yeah. We do it already for many centuries, cloning plants.
How would be cloning beneficial to humanity? Specifically to agriculture and trees?
Because you can make a copy of the best plants. Not only when you sow plants, you have the minor ones, the average man plant, and then the best ones all mixed. But you can take one or a few best plants and clone them, so the whole field has much higher yield.
Now,
so
the trees,
food production.
The trees, usually Better Globe, wherein you receive your awards, that the Better Globe's advocacy is planting trees so that it could protect the environment and also to address climate change. Now, is a cloned tree have the same effect or same effectiveness than that of a regular tree?
It has just the same effect, just the same appearance as a seedling tree. Yeah.
So what kind of trees do you clone?
So I was invited by Better Globe to clone a very interesting tree in Kenya. It was the muko, the melia tree, which can grow in semi-arid areas. And this is a hardwood tree, and they need millions of them, and they cannot wait for seeds. They want clones of them. So that's a nice example of such a tree which can be cloned.
Now, in terms of cloning, can we say that when you clone a certain tree, for example, in Kenya, and you would bring that to the Philippines, can you change certain genetical aspects of that tree so that this tree would grow up in the Philippines?
No, I don't think so. It's a tree from Kenya which grows in very dry areas. Here you need plants which can stand the rain. And,
so in terms of cloning, you could not modify the genetically?
No, we don't do that. Just go, like for Philippines, we need endogenous plants which grow here in Philippines, and we look for the best trees of a certain species and clone it. Yeah.
Now, the word cloning again.
Yep.
When you say cloning, that moralists would say cloning is immoral, and people would say that cloning is against church teachings. What can you say about that?
Yeah, maybe they're right for cloning of people, of man, but not for plants.
But plants are also living things.
No, that's in nature, and nature also clones.
Nature.
Like a potato, every tuber is a clone of the mother plant. You plant it out, you get new potatoes. So nothing unnatural when clones.
Okay, in a layman's term, how would you define cloning? In a simple term, so that people would understand cloning in a way that they would understand it and would accept it.
It's like photocopy of a plant, of some living being. Yeah.
say, copying something or taking a photograph. So when you say clone, so it is immoral also to Xerox. That's also the same as cloning.
No. But you have to make the distinction between GMO. In a GMO plant, that you put a gene from another organism in the genome. But we're not doing that. We just use the same.
So what's not the distinction between cloning and developing genetically modified organism?
So we don't modify the genes of a clone plant. So if you modify it, then you put a new gene in the plant. By cloning, you just make a copy of the genes.
So in terms of the trees,
yep.
You mentioned trees that you clone. Do you clone also fruit-bearing trees such as mango, avocado?
Yes, you can clone every plant group. What we clone is the kiwi plant. Special Chinese kiwis in our lab in Belgium, very small kiwis without hairs.
But will that have the same flavor, the same taste, or will it have the same nutritional effect to the body of a human being when they eat the kiwi? That is a clone tree. That's not natural. It's not made by God.
It's made by God, but we make copies of that. Yeah. So we didn't make the plant ourselves. We just took it from nature. Yeah. So
now, again, let's look at the health factor. People have misconception about cloning as that every clone elements are harmful to health. What do you say about that?
Are harmful? Sorry.
To the health of the human being.
No. It's just very healthy if you can select a plant with more vitamin C, more proteins, more nutrients. Then you have at the end you have more of them. If you
now in terms of looking at concepts of environmental protection and look at the health issues of morality. Now, in terms of economics, how is such biotechnology cloning essential to economics?
It's a big industry already in the world, mainly for ornamentals like orchids and all kinds of pot plants. It's a billion dollar industry. So it's very economic, and there are a lot of companies have thousands of people to work on that. Not in the Philippines, not big industry in the Philippines. So, but that can change in the future because it's really necessary.
Okay, regarding the trees, these are trees, and usually trees are within a certain environment and ecosystem. Will clone trees have an effect to the biodiversity? For example, the animals that is not a natural tree they would.
Yes, that's a good question, because when you clone a plant, you don't have much diversity. So you have to be careful not to clone one tree and have a whole forest of clones, because then some disease can come, a small insect, a bug, and eat everything, because it's so you have to be careful and to plant a mix of clones.
So will there be a specific ratio in a certain ecosystem wherein these are the number of clones, these are the number of the natural trees?
Yes, you also have to keep seedling trees too, because that's the source of the variation.
What is being cloned? Is it the seedlings or the tree?
The tree is cloned. We like big trees, so after 10, 20, 50, 100 years we can see, oh, that's a good tree, it stands so long there, no bug attacked it, no fungus attacked it, so it must be a good tree, and then we clone it. For a seedling, we cannot know what's the value of a seedling.
So within the process, for example, the people would imagine how, for you cloning trees, is that you use that same as that of a test tube, or in terms of the cloning?
If you use test tube?
For example, if it is a human being, as we watch movie, when they clone people in sci-fi movie, there's a test tube where the humans being developed.
Yes, it's much easier, but with plants in test tubes. We cannot grow human people in test tube. It's a pity. I would like to clone myself. But
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we discuss issues pertaining to environment, protection, health, economics. Later on, we will discuss so many things again about biotechnology, cloning, and the GMO. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we learned about so many things about Stefaan, and maybe we could learn more about him regarding his advocacy here in the Philippines and also the projects of Better Globe Group International pertaining to biotechnology and certain things as the cloning of trees. Now, Stefaan, what is Better Globe doing right now pertaining to this biotechnology trees in Kenya, in the Philippines?
So in Kenya, they want to plant 1 million of mukau trees. That's the dryland tree. So they obtaining big areas of land, of dry lands to plant them.
How about in the Philippines?
And the Philippines, so they invited me to come to the Philippines to have contact with University of Manila, and just to cooperate to see what can be done in the Philippines with plant tissue culture. Because your president also has a big plan to plant 1.5 billion trees, and also here there's a lack of seeds, a lack of young plants, and I think together with the university maybe we can look for technologies to clone certain trees to have more plants to put in the Philippines, to plant in the Philippines.
If it is a Macau tree in Kenya, what kind of tree would you like to plant here in the Philippines?
That we wait for suggestions from my colleagues of the university. So we need there's a whole list, of course, of endangered trees. So we have to pick up some special trees. Your national tree, Dipterocarpus, what's its name in Philippines?
The Nara.
The Nara tree is, for instance, a very good example. Because there are not so many trees anymore, and they have seed, but the seeds fall down and don't germinate after 1 week, then stops. So we need maybe the Nara is a good example for the Philippines. Yeah, to clone that.
No, the problem here in the Philippines. Let's go to certain issues pertaining to economics. Is that the development of mountains pertaining to population? Will it be feasible for us to plant trees here while in fact the population is growing?
Yes, it's growing, but you still have a lot of areas.
A lot of areas,
which can be, which in earlier time had trees, but now have been destroyed. So it's good to plant everything with trees because they serve mankind so much. So they the shoots they fix carbon, the roots they fix the soil against erosion, and they give us the 5 Fs. You know the 5 Fs.
What are the 5 Fs?
Food, fuel, fiber, fun, and
what's the last one?
That you have to find out.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about food, fuel. The other F is.
And the last one is fodder, feed for the animals.
Feeds for the animals.
So you have 5.
Now, how can trees be fuel?
Fuel. That's you just burn the wood, the timber. So that's the fuel kind of And the foods, okay, all the fruits, nuts, you can.
Now, regarding the aspects of food security, because there are so many lands, and you would plant just non-food-bearing trees. Will there be a conflict regarding planting trees and food security?
Yes, of course you also need trees for food, but also you have to keep a space, a place for trees which don't have foods, but can give fuel or can give.
Okay, you're speaking about trees. Let's look at the aspects of trees' behavior. Usually trees are trees, and it is not an ecosystem unless there are animals within the ecosystem, a habitat. Yep. Would you say that if a tree is planted in a certain forest without even animals climbing or even certain living things or elements in the tree, would you say that the tree would die?
Yes, but when you plant a tree, very fast insects come, small animals fill the gaps, and you have a whole ecosystem. It will soon come, and so the trees are the framework of the ecosystem with the roots and the shoots. And without trees, you don't have an ecosystem anymore, or very narrow or poor ecosystem. On one tree, there are living hundreds of species of insects, thousands of fungi, many more bacteria, and also species.
For us to have an environmental balance, so what kind of trees should be developed and planted to the different forests? Because there are classifications pertaining to the family, the tree family pertaining to botany. Now, what are
So in the families, if you look to the Philippines, the many trees are members of the Fabaceae family.
What's that?
So they have the pots with seed in. That you can recognize it by that. So many of them are here. So I think that family is very interesting. So, yeah.
Now, at that point is that we look at the family, the ecosystem. Now, people would say that projects that you have, will people support such kind of an advocacy? The biotechnology, the cloning, because here in the Philippines, people would say that, oh, why should I support it? It is against the church, specifically politicians. And politicians would always look at the votes of the church.
You can, you can support it because you want to be, for instance, carbon neutral. If you every household gives carbon dioxide, and you can neutralize it by buying trees or planting trees, so to supporting people who plant trees. So that's really a high morality.
No, you mentioned the clone tree and the natural tree. Now, will that have the same effect pertaining to the measurement of the ecological footprint? Of how many earths would you consume, for example? Because that is just a clone tree. It's not a natural tree.
Yes, but it's as good to fix carbon dioxide or make an ecosystem as a natural plant, as a seedling plant, just a copy of it. So don't worry about that.
No. Now, let's go. Trees are living things, and we look at the certain area in the Philippines, lands and certain environment forests. Now, let's go to carrying capacity. When we say carrying capacity, the amount of trees necessary for a certain area. So what is the ideal ratio for a certain community, a land area within how many trees would be planted? Will there be an ideal, or will there be specific numbers?
Wow, normally they estimate 1,000 trees per hectare need. So that's why your president also want to plant 1.5 million hectares with 1.5 billion trees.
Would you say that the cutting of trees, the illegal logging, have an effect to flooding, climate change?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So we should stop that and plant new trees. For every tree you cut down, you have to plant 10 new trees. So.
What is the specific time frame for a tree to grow for a certain feet? Because you say you cut a tree which is more than 10 years old, 20 years old, then you would plant another tree. So the span period of the development is how many years?
The problem is they cut trees from maybe 200 years. It takes much more time for
then you would cut
recover.
Then that would be immoral. That's a 200 years old tree. Then you would cut it.
But the people do. So that's really a crime, maybe. Yeah. So you have to plant a lot of trees to compensate that biomass and that the power to fix carbon dioxide.
Would you say that there would be a specific ratio on human to trees in terms of population, the tree population to the human population? How many trees per human should be the ratio? For example, the trees per se are the one beneficial to us pertaining to helping the environment. Would you say that there is a need for a ratio between the number of trees per population?
Yes, so it depends on where the people live. In the West, you need a lot of trees to compensate for the people. Maybe it's a good idea that we have to plant for every man on the earth. We have to plant at least one tree as soon as possible, more than there exist.
Okay, we're now in the last portion of our program, and we're looking at a better globe, a good globe, but a globe that is something environmental friendly. Now, maybe your message would go to how can we attain a better globe through biotechnology?
So you have to the social forestry. So you also have to help to develop the people by means of the trees. So you give them jobs by planting trees, by harvesting, by microfinancing them.
What is your message to the people about the concept of accepting cloning trees? That cloning trees is moral or is it immoral?
No, it's of course it's moral because you help to fight the problems of the world. So you have more food, less carbon dioxide, less erosion, and so on.
So thank you very much, Stefan. Now, Stefan taught us about certain aspects pertaining to what biotechnology, and maybe we learned something this day about the knowledge about new technologies other than tradition. Spell it out, ladies and gentlemen. K-A.N.T.O.T. That is knowledge about new, and that is biotechnology, cloning, and also certain issues pertaining to biotechnology. Now, within that point, people would raise eyebrows and they would say that, well, biotechnology, cloning is immoral. It depends on the perspective of people and how they would accept such issue. And specifically, such issue would be dependent on how open are we to looking at issues pertaining to addressing the problem of climate change and environmental protection. So it's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. Is cloning bad or cloning good? But we need to look at the aspects of the majority on how we help Earth and how we look at sustainable development. Remember, as I always mention, morality depends on the nature, on how people look at the concept of morality. What is moral to you might be immoral to me. People might say that cloning is immoral, but others would say it is moral. It depends on the perspective. And maybe at the end we could say that it is moral because it helps people. It is immoral because it is against the law of God. But at that point, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we need to look at all the dimensions. What is accepted to the society and what is beneficial to the majority. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. John Ortiz Teope. This is our program, Ang Laging Daan ni Doc John, the regular way of Doc John, the always way of Doc John, saying to you, hello, and thank you, everybody.